Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jeff, and today we're going to have some fun diving into a Fortell deck here. I wanted to showcase the Fortell mechanic a little bit, and also just give you guys a deck that I think would be pretty good with Fortell as the main feature here in this deck. So basically, we're all in on Fortell with this one. That's kind of the main thing that we're doing, is just straight up we're doing Fortell stuff. We have, I think, almost all of the good Fortell cards. I think almost all of them in general. But I wanted to make this as good as possible in a control-y deck that was running Fortell cards and make it fun and interesting. So this is really heavily focused on newer cards from Kaldheim. We have a few other finishers that are definitely in here, basically our lands, to make sure that we have some other good stuff as well. And this is the deck. So let's go ahead and jump into exactly what we're doing with this one. First off, what is Fortell? Let's kind of talk about that a little bit. Let's use Ravenform as kind of like the main thing for this. So Ravenform, if you guys haven't seen this card or Fortell yet, what it does is, so 3 mana Ravenform, 3 mana spell sorcery. You can exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue spirit token with flying, which is a really good removal spell. Just kill any creature, it exiles artifact or creature, and it creates a 1/1 blue creature token with flying, which is sweet. You can also then foretell it. So its foretell cost is 1 blue mana. So during your turn, you may pay 2 and exile this card because it has the foretell mechanic from your hand face down, cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost. So you can't cast on the same turn. You can't like foretell it at one point, like, which you can do this anytime during your turn. It just has to be on your turn. You pay 2, put it down face down. It comes out of your hand, which means it can't get discarded. It can't, there's some other benefits for sometimes for foretelling, but they can't get discarded, which is kind of the main thing. And then you can also cast it for less later. So it's foretold. You cannot cast it this turn. You have to wait until the next turn because it's sorcery speed to then be able to do this. But then it's 1 mana, Ravenform, kill something. So why would you want to be doing this? Why is it better to spend taking 2 turns off to be doing this? And the main thing is, okay, if you have other things to be doing on your turn, like drawing extra cards, doing all the things that control wants to do, typically holding up counter spells, which are typically 2 mana type of interactions. Saw Coming is a 3 mana one, but if you get up to 5 mana, it might be worthwhile. Just we're going to foretell a Ravenform, hold up a Saw Coming. If anything comes out, we get to counter the spell. Well, Saw Coming also can be foretold and become a 2 mana spell, which means that you can kind of do these shenanigans of just kind of like maximizing the amount of mana that you're using on your turn to be drawing extra cards, doing stuff like Behold the Multiverse, which is 4 mana, scry 2, and then draw 2 cards. Or it can be a 2 mana, scry 2, draw 2 cards at instant speed, which Fortell, if it's an instant speed card, you can still do the Fortell thing for its instant speed or whatever. It's just, it depends on what the card says. Just Fortell is its new casting cost if it's been exiled with a 2 mana down face card. Now that is its casting cost. And so, which by the way, 2 mana, scry 2, draw 2 cards is fantastic. It does everything you want it to do. Really good. I do have 1 copy of Ravenlore in the deck too, because we are playing snow synergies with this just for our extra win conditions, which is 5 mana, scry X, where X is the number of snow mana that was spent to cast this, and then draw 3 cards. So this can pretty easily at instant speed become a draw 5. Scry 5, draw 3 cards, which means you can dig 8 deep. Really, really powerful draw card for a control deck. So 1 copy of it, just because I think Behold the Multiverse is ultimately better. We also have just other ways to kind of be drawing cards, do other things as well. And so that I wanted to kind of just showcase what Fortell is first off, and then we'll dive into each of the different cards, why they're good, what's powerful here, and also just what our win condition is. So first off, why is it worth playing Fortell in the first place? Because these cards are good for sure. There's some things that are good, but there's some other reasons to be playing Fortell. And these 2 cards, Nico Defies Destiny and Cosmo Charger, are 2 like payoffs for playing Fortell. If there's anything else I'm missing for this too, I don't remember seeing much else for actual like payoffs on playing Fortell, at least in standard. There's some cards that came with like Ragnar, Kaldheim, the commander deck and everything like that, but I didn't see too much else. So let's go ahead and check this out real quick. Cosmos Charger. I do think this is an interesting card. 4 mana, has flash and flying, which by the way is still decent. This can be a threat. You can also foretell this for 3 mana instead, so we can flash this in, have it be a brazen borrower type of stats with higher toughness, and then be swinging in for damage. And then if foretelling cards from your hand costs 1 less to cast or 1 less to do. So now instead of 2 mana to put it down face down, you can do it for 1 mana, which is huge. and then can be done during any player's turn, which is also a really big deal. And so then we can foretell on their turn, which we have to then wait an extra turn before we can actually cast the stuff. So we can still just do some pretty cool things with this foretell ability. So anyway, I'm really excited about Cosmos Charger. I think it's gonna be really, really good. I have my son banging on my door right now. Sorry, guys. All right. And then we also have Nico's Defies Destiny. So first off, Cosmos Charger, just really good with different things. Just making sure that we can make it a little bit cheaper. It's worth playing, and it's also a decent threat that we can be swinging in for 3 damage with. I think you treat this kind of like a Brazen Borrower in this deck. Instead of being able to bounce something, it helps everything on our deck to be a little bit cheaper, a little bit better to be played. And I think then other than that, you kind of treat it like a Brazen Borrower. Nico Defies Destiny, 3 mana. You gain 2 life. For each Fortell card you own in exile. So this can end up being a lot of life gain. If you're spending your first early turns just exiling cards, waiting for things to actually happen, which you're playing a control deck, there's lots of ways to make sure you are hitting the creatures you need to, whatever else, and just kind of hold stuff in Fortell. Then this enters the battlefield. You can end up gaining like 8 life with this, which is huge. But even if it's 2 or 4 life, that's still really, really good. And then on the second one, add 2 mana, a white and a blue. Spend this mana only to foretell cards or cast spells that have been foretold, which as we saw with like Ravenform, this might just be, okay, now I'm not only just casting Ravenform for free, I'm exiling a target or artifact and getting a Raven for literally free mana instead of just 1 mana, which is really nice. And then the white side of it, you can use with Iron Verdict as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But only to cast those. And then the 3 side of it, the third saga, return target card with Fortell from your graveyard to your hand. So just good card advantage, good stuff. I wasn't sure the numbers to be running with all of these cards. I wasn't sure if that's like supposed to be a 4 of in this deck or 3 of. I built this how I would play it. I'm not typically a control player, so just so you guys know, you might want to tweak around the numbers a little bit. I wanted to have a little bit more removal than just Defies Destiny, because this is nice to have, but if we have like 3 of these in our hand, we don't have any of our other stuff. Like we don't want necessarily a bunch of Nico Defies Destiny, but I think you want to run into it every game at some point. And so I think that this is like either a good turn 3 play to help us ramp up to be able to foretell more things, lets us gain a little bit of life to slow down the game a bit, or you can just you can be playing it like turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, gain us a bunch of life, have it just be an extra good card to bring back our Doomskars or anything else that we need to that's already in the graveyard. So let's also talk about Doomskar a little bit, because this is one of the most busted cards that came out with Kaldheim, I believe. Pretty straightforward, 5 mana destroy all creatures at sorcery speed. So a worse Shadow the Skies because it's 5 mana, or you foretell it and then suddenly it becomes a 3 mana destroy all creatures, which is so good. And so this is why I think this is so good up against a control deck, especially if you're on the draw, or up against a creature deck that's playing a bunch of creatures, going aggro, Gruul aggro, whatever else is happening out there. They're winning by turn 4 a lot of times, which means that it's their turn 4. And if you're on the play or on the draw, then you're basically dead before you ever had even a chance to get to Doomskar. Which means that you need to have removal on turn 2, all that kind of stuff. So there is a side of like, okay, well, if you have removal or an interaction spell on turn 2, turn 3, then you might be able to just kind of survive that way and get to where you can have the destroy all creatures. Or with Doomskar, you have this other possibility of just foretelling this on turn 2. They're going to play out a big board on turn 3, and this also just kind of plays mind games because people know Doomskar is a thing now. So you still have to have double white mana, which can be a little bit difficult at times, but you can now just clear their board after they build it up really big on their turn 3 play. Clear the board. Their turn 4 is basically dead now, and you can start rebuilding and doing all the things you need to. So this is just one of the strongest plays you can play in control, is foretelling this card on turn 2, board wiping on turn 3 against a creature deck, and on turn 3, especially if you're on the draw, becomes a really, really powerful effect. If you're on the play, you might be able to be a little bit more ahead if we're telling other cards, holding this up, maybe getting them with your other removal spells in this deck, or flashing in, our Cosmos Chargers with 3 mana to be able to be a really good blocker. So there's other things you can do, but just having this card in your arsenal in a control deck, I think is awesome. It is what makes this worthwhile. I'm not sure if just the 4 copies of Doomskar is enough in this. I wanted to build more around Fortell than just a good control deck necessarily, but I do think that 4 copies of this and then everything else that we have going on for us does make it powerful enough. All right, so let's talk about everything else. Ascendant Spirit is our other win condition with this. Ascendant Spirit I actually really like. So 1 mana, 1/1. We've talked about this in a couple other decks as well, or other times, and so I'm not going to dive too far into it, but it can, you pay 2 snow mana, which was why our land base has lots of snow mana in it. Pay 2 snow mana, it becomes a Spirit Warrior with base power 2 or 3, or a base power toughness 2/3. This is just something we can cast, like if we foretold something for 2 mana, which with our deck we want to be able to get to 4 mana pretty quickly for untapped land, so we can foretell something for 2 mana, and then almost all of our stuff can be cast for 2 mana as well. We can, Behold the Multiverse, hold up Saw It Coming, hold up whatever, and then Ascendant Spirit can then be, if we don't end up having to use those, we can just also turn this into a 2/3 real quick. Or if we have 3 extra mana, we can turn this into a 4/4 if it's already become a Spirit Warrior. If we already spent mana beforehand, this now becomes a 4/4 Warrior Angel with a flying counter onto it, which means it dodges Heartless Act, and then can be swinging as a 4/4. And then I just like this as a finisher. If we ever do have just a bunch of mana, which our deck is wanting to be holding up a bunch of extra mana, and so with this, even if we get this in the really late game, this could, pretty easily become a really big creature for us. So then in 4 mana, after you spent the other stuff, this becomes if it's already an angel, it gets +2/+1/+1 counters, so it becomes a 6/6 and gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it does a lot of the things that Control wants to do. It allows you to hold up mana and do this at instant speed to make this bigger and better. You can spend it on the main phase to be able to draw cards if you want to, or make it big enough to be able to hit in for damage. But the main reason I like this card is because that last ability can be used multiple times, actually. So it's already still going to be an angel. You can activate it another time, and it will get another 2 counters onto it and gain whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. It says it gains that, not just it has this. It gains that as well. So that means it'll have a second instance of that same text after the first one, once it gains it a second time. So this will now become an 8/8 and draw you 2 cards, or the next time a 12/12, or sorry, a 10/10 and draw you 3 cards, which can finish games pretty quickly. And so I like this just as a good mana sink. It's a good blocker as well. Like it stops interesting combat phases, whatever. If people are swinging in with a creature, a 2/3 blocker is actually pretty good if you have some snow mana. So I like Ascendant Spirit just to be a good early gameplay for us to be able to have some interaction with just extra mana that we're trying to hold up, as well as being a good it's a decent top deck in late game. If you have 7 mana up, this can pretty quickly become a 4/4 angel for us. And then the next turn, if you have now 8 mana, you're swinging in with an 8/8 that draws you 2 cards. That's the kind of thing you can do with this. Yeah, are you always going to be wanting to pump it that much? Not necessarily, but you can have that risky line if you want to. And so I like Ascendant Spirit. Depart the Realm, another good Fortell card. This is just our Brazen Borrower. I'm not sure that you play this over Brazen Borrower. That's probably the biggest thing. So Depart the Realm I have is 2 copies in here because we're trying to play more Fortell. It gains you more life with Nico, all the kind of stuff. You can do Fortell at instant speed or whatever. But I think generally this is more of a Brazen Borrower slot. But you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, which does mean you can hit your own stuff, which is really nice, actually. If you're playing up some of this also board wiping, you can bring back your Cosmos Charger, you bring back Nico, Eris to be able to play with for more later on. But Depart the Realm, so it's pretty nice. You can also foretell it, pay it for 1 mana instead. Nico Eris, I'm playing as a 1/of in this deck. I wanted to play more initially, but I don't think it's powerful enough. I wanted to play more Fortell cards, first off. I wanted to bring in Nico Eris just because it's a Nico Eris deck to be playing Fortell, and so I wanted to have that, synergy. This is a showcase deck, more so than just anything else. So Nico Eris, pretty good here. It's definitely a good control deck in general. If we're holding up mana anyway, we can be sacrificing shards to draw us cards rather than doing other stuff with it. So Nico Eris does fit really well in the deck, but not necessarily putting as much focus on it right now. Iron Verdict, 3 mana, you can just deal 5 damage to target tapped creature, which is actually a pretty good amount of damage to any creature that's attacking in, which if you're playing control, that's the things you're worried about, is the things they're attacking in and tapping out. But there's other things that have vigilance. There's other things that just don't tap out. They can just build up a board until they can swing in and win. You don't really necessarily have this. But the nice thing is that you can just foretell this. Okay, I'm not going to be using it this turn. I'm going to foretell it for 2 mana. It's 1 mana now for me to be able to cast it at instant speed anytime that it might pop up. I think that's worthwhile. I think that's worth having. I'm not sure if having more copies is worth it. I'm only running 1 off just because I wanted to kind of have it there. I think Ravenform ultimately is just the better card. Even though it's sorcery speed, it just exiles stuff and gets rid of stuff. And yeah, the blue flyers might be annoying, but we have ways of dealing with that as well. And that's our main win conditions with Starnheim Starnheim Unleashed, and Emisizzle Call. Those are the main win conditions for our deck, as well as having Castle Ardenvale as well. Do I have Castle Ardenvale? Oh, I instead I put in what's it called, a Faceless Havens instead of because I wanted to try out the new cards as well. Faceless Haven as our main win condition and stuff. So that's our main win conditions. Cosmos Charger, Ascendant Spirit, Starnheim Unleashed, and Emisizzle Call are ways to win the game with this. They put out a bunch of flyers, bunch of creatures out, and we can swing in. So Starnheim Unleashed, another Fortell card, of course. 4 mana. So you can pay 4 mana, you just create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. If it was foretold, then you create X of those tokens instead. So we typically want to try to foretell this. So we pay 2 to foretell at one time, and then it's 1XX for the number of stuff. So now it's 3 mana to create 1 4/4 angel token, or 5 mana to create 2, 7 mana to create 3, 9 mana to create 4. And so, but even 2 of these with 5 mana is pretty good. Like a 5 mana create 2 4/4s is a very powerful effect. It is sorcery speed, but we putting out those bodies on board, and we have enough different ways to be doing that with the deck with Emisizzle Call, Starnheim Unleashed, that at some point the goal is to play those out, maybe hold up Saw It Coming so that you can protect them, and just be getting in for 4 points of damage. And over time, angels with 4 damage do win games, especially with these ones, which I believe have vigilance as well. The Emisizzle Call ones do not have vigilance, but they give everything indestructible for a turn, which is pretty nice as well. But it's just another way to create 2 more angels. It's in our land base, so we can still be playing enough lands. 23 lands in our base deck. Another 26 here to 28. So 28 lands altogether to make sure that we have enough mana that we can actually be tapping down 2 mana to foretell something, or foretell 2 things on a turn, or multiple things with Cosmos Charger, and then also be able to play everything else. Behold the Multiverse, be able to draw us cards, do everything. We have Seagate Restoration to draw us a lot of cards, which is a little bit awkward. Seagate Restoration, I wanted it in here for some card draw. It might be better just to replace with like Disruption, just because every time you foretell a card, you put it out of your hand. And so while we're holding on to lots of cards to be able to play, we're not necessarily keeping a bunch of cards in hands, but every once in a while, if we're Graven Luring, Behold the Multiverse, we do end up drawing quite a few cards, and so it's worth having here. Nico Ayers can draw us lots of cards as well, and so I figured a couple copies of Seagate Restoration. It might be better though to switch it over to like a Visions card or Disruption or something else there, or just some other things. But anyway, that's the deck. As far as in the mana base, we have our snowlands. I added in actually 2 of the tapped snowlands just because we want enough snow stuff that I think it's worth having, and we can play some tapped lands in the early games and not be too worried about it. And so Glacial Floodplain, playing in here as well as 2 of, just to test it out. Faceless Havens as a 2 of. You can pay 3. It becomes a 4/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types in another turn, and then it's still lands, so you can attack him with that. Clearing the board, swinging in with 4 3s. 4 damage does close out games pretty quickly, so it's worth it. Gates of Isfel as a 2 of. You can pay, it's basically 6 mana because you have to tap this as well. So 6 mana to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. This is one of the few lands that actually has this effect at instant speed, which is really, really nice. If you ever just have 6 extra mana, and maybe this is just the best thing to do. You have a bunch of lands in hand. You can gain 2 life and draw 2 cards, which is just huge to have in the mana base. So really big fan of this one. We get our pathways from Kaldheim as well for the white-blue pathways. And that's the deck. That's basically it. So let me know if there's anything else I was missing with this one. I'm definitely using Aether Hub's deck builder is a little bit funky sometimes, and I'm not able to see all of the cards available. And so I might have missed something here. So let me know down in the comments below if I miss any other good cards. If this is something fun that you guys think will be changing, and then what are ways to upgrade the Fortell Showcase deck into something that's actually good for Ultimate Control. Let me know down in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.